law, and the way it was prohibited was in stages. And the last stage, so first there's some good in it, but the harm outweighs the good. Second, don't come near prayers. And the third, stop drinking alcohol is prohibited. Yeah, so that was the final stage. And after that, then they stopped drinking. I'm not saying there are no Muslims out there who don't drink. Of course, there will be obedience and there will be disobedience as well. But our aim in life is to be as obedient as possible, because look, everything in the Quran that has been prohibited, it is something which impacts you individually, or your family, or your community as a whole.
What other things would you say to people who don't know very much about Islam that are prohibited? That
Very good question.
people don't know about.
Yeah.
So drinking's one.
Drinking, gambling,
Yeah.
adultery, fornication, oppression.
Fornication?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Anything extramarital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
Yes.
So if you're not married, you're not allowed to. You're
Married?
not. I'm married, alhamdulillah. So, yeah, fornication, adultery, prohibitions like unjust wars, oppression. What else?
Can I ask you a question?
So all these things are bad for you, basically. I'm sure you won't. You will object. You won't object to any of this being prohibited, right? This is something what all human beings with their moral compass would say is wrong.
Can you go through them again?
Okay, alcohol, gambling, adultery, fornication, interest usually, yeah.
Interest?
Yeah.
What do you mean, interest?
Like the banks charging you interest.
I definitely agree with that. Can that be prohibited?
Alhamdulillah. Yes. Oppression, unjust wars, all these things.
Yeah, I mean...
Which one would you say should not be prohibited from this list? And by the way, this is only a subset. There's lots more.
Okay. The interest from the banks,
Yeah.
I believe that should be prohibited.
No, I asked you which should not be prohibited
Which
from
should
this
not
list.
be prohibited. I don't think you should prohibit any of them.
So you shouldn't prohibit.
Any of them.
But you did agree with usury, with interest.
I agree with that one, but the other ones, I think there's something. If you were to say,
Are you married, by the way?
No,
So you don't have children?
no.
Okay. If you were married and you had children, would you allow them to drink?
There'd be occasions where I would think that was appropriate based on my culture and upbringing.
Okay. Why only occasionally?
Because a child's not responsible enough, and it could lead to a slippery slope. But for example, like,
To me, a 17-year-old is a child. I mean, based on the NHS definition.
would you let a 17-year-old?
I wouldn't let anyone. Not even you. So if my child was as old as you,
Yeah.
yes, then I wouldn't let it either.
What about smoking?
Same thing again, it harms your
Are
body.
Muslims allowed to smoke?
No, actually, anything that harms your body is prohibited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so
But I'm not saying Muslims don't smoke.
no.
Like I said, they can disobey because they are free will.
I'm curious about like why people drink alcohol, for example, and I think have you asked yourself why people drink alcohol?
Actually,
Like,
that was
different tribes and
that was the
societies.
reason for me to ask that
But
question
what's
to
your,
you.
What's your answer? Why do you think people like everyone
think
does something for a reason?
you
Do
know,
you know why?
Human tendency is if you prohibit them from something, they'll do it. They would want to do it.
Yeah.
That's human nature, you know. So, for example, even though they know it harms you, it harms your body. I don't know. There's some intrinsic nature that we have that sinning is easy, to abide by the laws is difficult. When I say sinning, I mean going against or being disobedient is easier, and also tendency. Same thing with children, you know. They would, if there was no one watching them, then they would do or disobey. They would do the wrong. For example, why do we have traffic speeding cameras? Yeah, because if they were not there, people will speed. But if they were there, then they would less likely speed. Not that it'll completely stop people speeding. So who cares? You know, if they're rich, they'll pay lots of tickets, maybe.
But in Germany, they don't have a speed limit.
I think they do now. They do now, yeah.
Oh, really?
They changed the.
Oh, they've finally changed it.
Yes.
That's disappointing.
So this is something like, look, even in Germany, I think it's only the Autobahn which didn't have it. The other places, they had speeding limits. So it's only certain places. And like I said, this is human nature. If someone is not observing you, someone is not watching over you, then they will most likely commit offenses, most likely commit crimes, most likely sin. And that is the reason, this is what religion does to you. You voluntarily,
I don't know if I agree with your statement.
which one? That
That
I think
if you're unobserved, you're more likely to do the wrong thing.
they did studies on this, you know. They actually experimented on this.
But my experience, regardless of your research, or
Yeah.
I guess my own experience, is that
You never stole cookies from from your mom when you were young?
she didn't. She made her
Or chocolates.
Her cookies are really bad.
Oh dear.
No,
I hope she's not watching.
No, I think there's something like
Is there anything that you did when you were a child which you were not supposed to? Especially when your parents were not watching.
yeah, I would say stealing sweets from the sweet shop, like one or two here or
Not
there.
shop, from your home.
Oh,
Like, have
I'm
you?
sure. I'm sure. Of course.
Okay, so let's ask yourself that question. Based on your own experience, would you have done that if your parents were observing you?
No.
So there you go. So this is what it is. It's human nature to do things wrong naturally unless someone was observing them.
I don't know if it's human nature.
It is.
No, it's a choice. Because, for example, now as an adult, there are situations where I'm in this as an adult. There's no one looking around. For
Yeah.
example, I found someone's wallet the other day.
Yeah.
There was £40 in it. Or a girl I'm dating, you know,
Yeah.
she left a wallet of mine, there's £50 in it.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to notice if I take it away. So there's something beautiful about life that I have the choice. I'm faced with a moral decision rather than like obedience. I have to. Like every single moment, I'm given a choice. The same with alcohol. The other day I played poker. You know.
Oh dear.
And but it was kind of beautiful because we had a friend who's Muslim who came, and we couldn't play with money. So we played.
Okay, so that's not gambling then, if it's not with money.
No. We just played with chips.
Yeah,
I wanted
that's
to
different. So gambling obviously is another form of addiction people have, and it destroys families. Yeah, alcohol does the same thing. It destroys families.
Yeah.
Many of the divorces, you know, go to the divorce lawyers. They love people who drink alcohol because it brings a lot of revenue for them. And the same thing with the government. Yes, they charge a lot of taxes on your drinks. So they are making a lot of money. That's the reason they portray these advertisements all the time on television and newspapers because they know it is harmful for the public, but because they're getting revenue from it, they are making the most of it. But when Christmas comes, don't drink and drive. And within a few minutes, they show you an advertisement for champagne or for beer or something like that. So this is the hypocrisy or the double standards of our communities and our governments that I'm trying to tell you.
No,
Okay?
I agree with you. I just don't think a hard ban would work because, like prohibition in America, that was a disaster.
That's because, like I said, they went about in the wrong way. Yeah, it was like I said, the cold turkey method.
Like, can I give you another example? Like most of our
What do you think of the scientists' study, which I mentioned about the one that's in the Lancet?
I'm not at all surprised. There have been this isn't new news to.
No, but before they used to say that little drink is good for your heart, stuff like that.
I've always known since I was like the youngest I can remember that alcohol
is bad.
Because it's effectively in doses, it's poisonous. But like I kind of think that if you take away my choice in the matter, like one of the things that I love about life is that I'm faced with a choice so many times of whether to do good or bad. I don't need to be a Christian or a Muslim to do that.
No, you don't need to. I totally agree. You don't need to be religious to have a good moral compass, good moral judgment. But then it again boils down to what is good and what is bad based on whose definition is good or bad. See what I mean? Because everyone can have subjective opinions.
I really agree with yours.
Yeah. And that's the reason I'm saying we need an authority. Like in my case, I believe that it cannot be human. It has to be your creator. It has to be God who has the ultimate, jurisdiction to decide or to tell you what is good and what is not.
I don't agree with your logic.
Why?
Because you're saying that...
Who should decide that according to you?
What?
Prohibitions. And because every law has certain prohibitions. For example, if you had your license, you cannot just drive the way you want. Oh, I feel happy at 80 miles an hour. You can't do that. If the speeding limit is 30, then you go on 30. Or you get fined. So every law has certain prohibitions. Which you cannot cross the boundary, and if you do, you get penalized.
But I don't think you saying that for laws to be applicable, there needs to be a creator.
Okay, whom would you give the jurisdictions to make laws.
Can I tell you the story I tell myself?
Yeah, go on.
Is that religion, what we're really talking about here is society functioning as best as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I think we're talking about. It helps if you have a God who's all powerful and you believe in this God, because then if you don't do it, you won't get into the afterlife, or you won't have a good afterlife.
No, you won't even have a good life here, we are saying. It's the benefit of both worlds.
Yeah.
This life, hereafter as well.
But I don't think you need to have you need to subscribe to this sort of very strong rules that you have. Because would you say that?
No, but whom would you give that choice? Because like I said, every system needs rules. Yeah. Every system needs the do's and the don'ts,
we have laws.
the prohibitions. Yeah, exactly. So whom would you give that authority to make laws, which you will be happy with?
I think most people would say they give governments authority to make laws.
And based on your experience, do you think how have the government performed based on your experience? For example, take the Iraq War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Majority of the people in this country were against it. Did they listen to us? No, they didn't.
What we're talking about, like in Britain, for example, if you're not religious, where's the moral force? Who's the people we look up to? There isn't anything.
No, there is, because even in Britain, you can't just act or do what you want.
No, you didn't hear me. Like,
yeah, sure.
What I'm saying is, like, if you're a Muslim in the UK, you talk to God. If you're Christian in the UK, you have your God. If you're not religious, you don't have anything to look up to hold you to account. You just have yourself.
No, you have your society.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to, for example, if the society, you go by what is acceptable in the society. For example, certain societies, it's okay to walk complete nude. Yeah? They have no problem with that because that's their culture, that's their tradition. Yes? You wouldn't do that in Britain unless you're one of those, fringe, unless you're of that fringe group, okay? The nudists who come here sometimes, yes? But even they get arrested if they do it without permission of the government. So, like I said, you cannot say that there is no prohibitions in society. And if you're going to start using the government as an example of being the best role model for you or the best authority for you, to whom you would give the power or agree with that they should formulate the do's and the don'ts in society, then
I agree with you. That's like I said, government.
So either you'll be a complete anarchist who goes against the government, or you're going to abide by what the government tells you. But then you won't agree with everything with what the government tells you either.
Okay, it's funny, like, I agree with pretty much everything you're saying, but I don't feel that I need to like sign a contract with a god. As I'm just talking about myself, not society.
I agree. So you don't want to like commit to a particular religion, is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, because like I know, like the thing you said was really beautiful. Like if you're not harming yourself and you're not harming other people, this I love.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be a Muslim or a Christian or a Buddhist to do this, because I'm not, and this is what I try to do, and this is why, like everyone here, like the thing that makes us all human is I think we have an innate sense of that in our hearts.
Yeah. So the humans do have this understanding of non-harm, yes, and this is, but everyone doesn't abide by that, do they?
No.
Yes.
Because we have an ego.
For example, you know the example of gambling and alcohol, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, and a person who's drinking alcohol, maybe in moderation, yes, they have this clear understanding that they are not harming themselves or harming others, yes, and they're okay to drink with that. But then when you have an objective study like that study which is published in the Lancet, they tell you that it does harm you. So maybe it is your own biases, it is maybe cognitive dissonance, I don't know what, makes you think that you're not harming anyone. But in reality you are. And that is why I'm saying, who decides what is good and who decides what is not? Because everyone is going to have their own subjective understanding.
Great question.
Yeah, everyone's going to have their own subjective understanding. I'm sure that no alcoholic at any point thought that they're going to become addicted.
Yeah.
But they ended up in AA, you know?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because once you start drinking this intoxicant, then your judgment suffers.
For some people.
Depends how much you drink.
Yeah.
So for some people, the tolerance level is much lower than others. Yes, some people can get drunk. I don't know. I've never drunk in my life, so maybe you might be able to help me.
I've drunk a lot.
Yeah, I know, but some people, in your experience, your friends might get drunk by just maybe, I don't know, a pint or two. Yeah, so everyone has different tolerance. But like I said, their intention might be good, that they are not harming anyone, but in reality, that can change. Yes, they can end up harming someone. Yes, even though they intended not to. But my question is this: why put yourself in harm's way? You know, you mentioned a specific term. You said poison.
Yeah.
Yes, when it came to alcohol. So if I were to offer you poison in any quantity, would you drink it?
Well,
you know that is poison. Would you drink it in any quantity?
Well, poison's in the dose. I mean, like, water's poison if you drink too much. I see your point. The answer's no.
Come on, we both know water is not poison, and anything in excess is wrong. Where there is water or anything, yes, I agree. But we are not talking about exceptions, such exceptions. This is the extreme level. I'm talking about a small, that's the reason I said in any quantity. So even a minute quantity, and you know it is poison, your rational understanding, your reasoning, yes, your experience will tell you, no, I'm not touching that. Am I right? But people know that alcohol is poison today. Like the way you said, I always knew it was wrong. It is always harming. Again, you'll say it's a quantity. You know, we as human beings, we try to justify even drinking poison sometimes. And this is exactly what is happening when people are consuming alcohol.
You could say that it's a slight side argument. Like, alcohol technically is not a poison. It's a substance.
Based on the study.
If you have too much of it.
No. Based on the study which I mentioned in Lancet, they said even a small quantity is harmful to you.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a poison. And I could say the same thing about...
what is poison? Something that harms you. To me, that is poison.
It's something... I actually don't know the definition. But I could say that about so many other things, like poorly manufactured food with too many additives and sugar.
Remember I mentioned fats earlier? Remember I mentioned anything that harms your body, you should avoid. And that goes with everything. So Allah tells us in the Quran to eat something which is wholesome, which is healthy, which is nutritious, you know, which is pure. And this is something which is, again...
Do all Christians, all Muslims eat very well?
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, speaking of myself, forget about others. I eat unhealthy stuff many times. Yeah, a substance that is capable of causing illness or death or living,
Well, my point is that, does Islam have a rule against binge eating?
Of course.
Or overeating?
Yeah. I mentioned the principle earlier, didn't I? Anything that harms your body, you should not do that. Whether it comes to drinking or tattooing or gambling or anything like that.
What's the rule on Islam and food? I'm curious.
Don't eat something which is unhealthy. Anything that harms your body, you shouldn't consume that. I think people know. People generally know.
Your question. You say you think people know, so you're relying on their good judgment to eat well, but there's no law in Islam.
No, there is haram and halal. So there are certain things which are prohibited for us. For example, we cannot eat carrion, we cannot drink blood, we cannot eat foods which are sacrificed to idols, those kind of things.
Can you have a Domino's pizza?
If it's halal, yeah.
How many can one Muslim have? Is it prohibited?
Oh no, there's no such limit. I mean, come on, look.
But it's a fair point.
There are certain things which you have to employ your common sense. God has given you intellect, yes? So you're not going to binge eat pizza and then you're going to
but there are
almost choke yourself.
But surely there are people who happen to be Muslim who do overeat and who eat 2 Domino's pizza, and you're saying maybe 2. You need to use your common sense. And my point is that I drink alcohol, but I use my common sense. And I also try to eat very healthy, and I use my common sense.
Yes.
So it's interesting.
You should, but that's
contradicting
no, it's not, because there are certain things which you have to employ your principles, isn't it? You cannot all the time expect God to tell you every minute thing.
Why not? You're suggesting you should.
No, I'm saying with regards to your purpose of life, yes, then God tells you what will give you success. And there are certain prohibitions in life. So the whole idea of Islam or religion in particular, is not to make your life difficult, but to make it more meaningful. And that is what I mean. It's not to govern your life and to observe you for every minute detail in your life. But at least for the general idea of what, for example, interest is something that affects the poor people a lot. Yes, and there are many countries which have become more poor because now they have to pay more interest for the money that they borrowed in their time of need. Yes, and this is a principle which we see that has harmed entire countries, entire societies have been destroyed because of this. So that's why I'm saying it looks at the bigger picture rather than micromanagement. Yes, because the whole idea is not to make your life difficult, but to make it more meaningful. And this is the reason I asked you, what happens if there was indeed life after death? What have you prepared for that?
I'm not sure. I don't know. No human knows the answer to that question, and that's what I love about life. Like, no one can prove.
How many humans have you interviewed?
Well, maybe not enough. But
because many people will say they know exactly what will happen to them in the afterlife based on their belief, based on their scriptures, based on what they were told.
No, but what I mean, I guess, like, nobody can prove.
Okay, so you mean like empirical evidence? I actually agree.
Scientists, even like if you take who's the most intelligent imam on the planet? Even him. Is it you?
Yeah, no, I'm not an imam, and even if it was the most intelligent person, the afterlife is indeed something which is we have not seen it.
But
so if you're seeking empirical evidence,
I'm not.
Okay, so I don't know what kind of proof would you require to believe in it.
I don't think about it because if I just do my thing on this planet and all the things which I agree with you, like live life, love, do good to yourself, to your neighbours, like if you do that, then de facto you're going to enjoy the afterlife. Like for me, I can't prove it. I'm not particularly bothered about it. If I overthink it, then I'm not going to be able to
Okay, have you heard of the Pascal's wager?
Pascal's wager, yeah. If you don't know something, you might as well believe it in case it's real. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good definition. So imagine this, like let's say you don't believe in the afterlife. You believe that one day we will die, become dust, the end. Yeah, there's nothing after that. Let's say we both face that situation. Yeah. So regardless of whether I believe in God or not, I'm going to die one day. You're going to die one day. We both become dust, and that's the end of our life, our story. Okay? But now if you flip that coin, and there is indeed an afterlife, there is indeed God going to question you on the day of judgment for to account for the life that you lived in this life, and because you disobeyed Him, because you did not believe in Him, you did not worship Him, then you will face the consequences for that. I will also face the consequences for that. Okay? But because I have actually prepared for that in this life, then I have not taken as big a risk as you. See what I mean? So if you're understanding that there is no afterlife, then we both really don't lose out anything. Yes, we both are in the same situation. That is the end of our life, and that's it. But if there indeed is life after that, and you will be questioned for and give account for the life that you lived, like I said, this life is a test, then there will be bigger risk for you, and you're taking a bigger chance, and the consequences you will face is something which you'll have to deal with by yourself. Because every individual will be then judged by God based on what life they live. So you mentioned many times that if we all don't harm anyone, if we all live a life which is beneficial, okay, look, that is good and well and good. But like I told you that because everyone's understanding of good is subjective, then everyone cannot be right. Yes, some people are going to be wrong and some people are going to be right. So do we take that risk as well? Why should we take that risk? So that's the reason I'm saying we need someone in authority, like God, to define for us what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. Many people say, okay, I love myself, I love humanity, I want good for everyone. But the same people will be okay with, for example, abortion. Yes? The same people. They say, oh, this fetus, they don't even call it child, They say this fetus doesn't have life. Yes? And I don't want to give it life because the world is a bad place. I'm not ready to bring this child or this fetus into the world. And they are perfectly okay. And I'm talking about vegans like you, yes, who don't want to kill animals, but they're perfectly okay with abortion.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean about trying to judge what is good and what is right based on that. Because like I said, everyone at the end of the day are going to have their own personal biases, their own personal reason. So even if something is bad, they try to justify it to themselves that it is okay. Because it's my body, my life, my fetus.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If all the rules of Islam were put into British law and people had to do them, would you be satisfied?
I would be okay with that if Sharia was here. Yeah.
What's
Do you know that many of the British laws are based on Abrahamic faith, on the Bible actually? You'll be surprised how many of the moral,
right?
how many of the laws are actually. It started with because before the church and the state was same, they were one. It is only later on it was separated. Yes, and this is what I mean, that even they didn't start from scratch. The British laws actually started from a religious book.
Yeah.
So,
religious text.
Does that answer your question?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, if you're asking if I'll be happy, so if the British law adopted the Sharia, then why would I not be happy?
Okay.
What is it that you would object to from the prohibitions that you learned so far that would make your life as an Englishman difficult? Not drinking, not gambling, no fornication, no adultery. I think, look, if you had a family, and if you had a wife and you had children, you would agree with most of the points that I'm raising now. Maybe because you haven't experienced that life, that then you are now, you're young, you want to enjoy life, and it's normal for you to go about all these things which I consider as vice, as bad. For you, it can be okay. Like
No. The majority I agree with, but I think a lot of them are cultural. They're from. I think it's like a difference in culture, like Islamic culture, British, traditionally like Christian.
Which British culture? If you went to a culture maybe a few hundred years ago in England, it is completely different.
No. I think I'm talking about for example, like alcohol. I know, like Anglo-Saxons, for example. Like I don't know.
So it's a tradition that you have to. There are many traditions that we have as well.
But for example, like with infidelity, like I don't think marriage works for everyone. Like there are people who try and they get divorced. They're just not happy. Like
Then get divorced then, if they're not happy. There's a way out. Why should you cheat on your wife? Just tell her I want to divorce you, or the wife can tell the husband I want to divorce you. That is something that Islam gives you a right to do for both men and women. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to cheat on your wife just because you're unhappy with her, or the wife cheats with the husband just because she's unhappy with the husband.
I don't think humans are brave enough to make those big choices sometimes. Like
earlier you mentioned about free will. About free will, that you should be given the choice to make your decisions. But now you're saying you're not brave enough to be given that choice. Why?
No, I don't think it's human relationships are so complicated, aren't they?
It is, yes, it is, indeed.
And the road to a relationship breaking down, it's not as simple as saying I want a divorce. Like
no, but
human beings, we want everything to be harmonious.
Yeah.
And we want to avoid hurting people, and we want to avoid conflict.
I don't think
human beings have enough.
If anyone cheats with a spouse, that would hurt them.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I don't know. What you're doing is you're saying I don't want to. Humans should not divorce their spouse if they're unhappy, but at the same time they shouldn't cheat on them, because I think one of them is going to happen.
I'm not condoning. I'm just explaining, because I'm sure there are. I don't know if it's the same in Hindu culture, but I'm sure there are Muslims who are adulterous.
Yes, like I said, every single sin, every single prohibition, it's not like just because they are Muslims doesn't mean they don't commit those sins or those prohibitions. Because at the end of the day, God has given us all free will. Yes, because if He was going to make us into robots, then we would all worship God without disobedience.
If we're all free will, why do we need the rules?
Because we are weak. We as human beings are weak. Just like the way you said that it's not, it's something like to divorce something. It's not something easy for us. I totally agree. Yes, but at the at the same time,
saved your life twice.
at the same time, you you shouldn't cheat on your spouse either, because even though you might not be happy with your spouse, that doesn't mean you have the right to cheat on them.
Yeah.
Do you agree? And this is something that we find, again, I don't know if you would call it tradition, because I think it does somehow fit into that equation of being traditional. That in Britain you don't get, there's no punishment for adultery. I don't know if there is. I don't think there is. So if you cheat on your wife, she can...
There is punishment.
No, there's punishment in the sense that she now, if she has proof, she can take you to court and get a divorce. But the police won't come and say, I'm going to arrest you because you slept with someone else. See what I mean?
Yeah, but we have our own. There's shame, guilt, social ostracism.
Yeah, this is moral. And look, I don't think there's any shame nowadays in fornication.
Really?
In this tradition.
Really? I think there's loads.
Well, if you go to any university, in fact, it'll be shame if you were a virgin many times.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So the tradition has changed. Our culture's changed.
Yeah.
Yes? In fact, you'll be laughed at if you were a virgin. By the time you graduate and you're still a virgin, they laugh at you. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So things have changed.
When did you lose your virginity?
Well, disclose that on the... No, actually, in Islam, we only do it when we are married.
How old? Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I am older than you.
No. How old were you when you?
Oh yeah, I was in my 20s. In my 30s when I got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had in your 20s, you had 10 years of being a hot-blooded male.
In our tradition, this is a huge taboo, and I don't mean only Muslims. Amongst the Asians, even the Hindus, even the Buddhists, in fact, even the atheists in that culture, for extramarital sex is something which is frowned upon.
Yeah.
It's not something encouraged in the society.
Did you find yourself tempted at any point?
Of course, as a human, as someone who is young, hot-blooded.
Where did you channel that energy? I'm curious.
You know, in Islam, we have something called we fast when we. So we try to fast.
Can I ask? I'm curious about fasting. What? I'd love to try it. But what's the purpose of fasting? When is it? Because Eid's just happened, right?
Yeah.
So, do you recommend it for non-Muslims?
Yeah. Why not? You'll get to understand, because it's all about controlling your willpower. Yes. And to learn. The main objective is to get close to God, which is again obedience to God.
Yeah.
So even if I am in a secluded place where no one is watching, yes, I could have easily eaten, yes, but I'm not doing it for that purpose. My purpose, like I said, in Islam, is to obey God and to worship Him. And for me, if this is the wisdom in which I'm learning to control my will, so it's not just about eating; it's controlling your tongue. It's controlling your eyesight. Yes, it's controlling your ears. Not to hear bad, not to hear evil,
so
not to see evil.
Like a cream bun in the shop, you don't look at it going past?
Well, I can look at it, but you shouldn't be tempted by it.
Yeah.
Control your urge, that's it.
Yeah. No, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so when I say obviously to lower your gaze, I mean like the opposite sex.
Yeah.
And same thing again with not listening to bad things, or not speaking bad things, or not swearing. So it's all of this. Yes, and by the way, it's controlling your hunger from sunrise to sunset. It's not a big deal. Even in this country where your fast is like 16 hours long, or even more, 17 hours or 18 hours.
It's easy. It sounds easy.
It sounds difficult, but it's easy when you actually do it.
Yeah.
I think you should try it one day.
So what's the point in doing it if it's easy?
No, it's not that. It's like I said, it's not easy like when you're eating normal days and not and fasting on during Ramadan. Obviously, it's not the same. I mean, my life is more comfortable when I get my lunch and dinner on time. Yeah. So easy in the sense that it's not something which is impossible or intolerable. That's what I meant. Not easy peasy in that sense. Yeah. So yes, and also it makes you understand what people who don't get food, yes, what they go through. What are their challenges? What are their sacrifices? So it makes you understand, and this is also the month when the Muslims gives the most charity. Yeah. So go and Google it. In Britain, who are the most charitable people? Even though the Muslims are a small percentage, they are the ones who give the most charity in Britain. Can you believe that?
proportionally?
Proportionally,
Really?
yeah.
Well, of
Yeah,
course
yeah.
I can. If that's
Yeah, definitely.
what
And this is
food-
something which is encouraged in Ramadan again.
I love that.
Yeah.
I could start doing that.
Yeah, inshallah, why not?
Yeah.
May Allah give you hidayah, which is guidance, yes. So yeah, it's like I said, it's everything that we do, all the do's and the don'ts in Islam, it has certain underlying meaning to it.
Yeah.
The prohibitions have a meaning to it. The ones, the laws and the commands, like for example, we believe in the 5 pillars. You know that, I don't know if you know that. So the first is to believe in Allah, to believe in God and His Messenger. Second is to pray 5 times a day. Yes, and by the way, the prayers don't last many hours. Our prayers, the ritual prayers are like max 10 minutes.
I know. I actually love where I love to spend a lot of time is in mosques.
Really?
Yeah, I love to go. I
Wow.
relax. I
So which, you got any favorites?
East London Mosque.
Oh, mashallah. That's good.
There's one in.
You live around there?
I used to go to acting classes there, so I would
Interesting.
just go in and I find them so peaceful because of like a church in
Yes.
England. It's so cold. You have to sit on wood.
Right.
It's amazing, but in a mosque it's very peaceful. Everyone's very welcoming.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go in and people have an agenda and they try and convert me to Islam, but most of the time, like, it's just a place of peace, and I
Yes.
love that.
There's no distractions, there's no
No.
statues or pictures or anything.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Because it's a place where you're supposed to focus on God. And that's the reason. I think you should go in Ramadan.
Yeah,
You
I'd
find
love
it
to.
more interesting.
What's the best?
You get free food there. That should be motivation enough.
What's the food that you miss the most when you're fasting?
When you're fasting. Well, it's the normal food. The normal food which you have. He's saying lamb biryani. I agree with him. That's good. So it's your. I mean, look, whatever food you enjoy, you're controlling your nafs. You're controlling yourself from indulging in that.
Yeah.
Like even water. Yes, I think I miss water the most.
Yeah, water.
Obviously, because that is something which everyone needs in their daily life, isn't it? It's something you can't do without. So it's something that, but because there are communities out there who have to travel like for hours just to get drinking water. So it makes us not only reflect on their life, what they go through.
Empathize.
Exactly, yeah. And that enables you to spend more money in charity to these communities who really need the money.
You learn to give more as a human being.
Yeah, because now you're practically experiencing what they would be experiencing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah?
That's kind of why I love my job as an actor, because my
Yeah.
job is to, depends what type, but to become another human being, and in order to do that you need to
Be in their shoes.
yeah
Yes.
and that requires a lot of curiosity and questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's you need to research your character, isn't it?
And
Obviously.
research human nature.
Yes.
But yeah, I think I might continue my run now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've chatted
Put your
for
shoes
like-
on though.
We've chatted for like an
I want to
hour.
mention something about overeating, yeah? What we learned from our
Quran.
our Salaf, who keeps saying only about what he get in his stomach, his value what he get out from it. So
Yeah.
we don't make food with our important thing.
Yeah.
Because you saved me my life twice, I give you something to save your life in the
Okay.
hereafter.
That's really kind.
Yeah.
So that's a free Quran copy and some booklets.
No, it's really kind. I already have 3 copies of the Quran.
I'm sure. Being in
Yeah,
East
yeah.
London Mosque.
Yeah.
I can
exactly.
imagine. No problem, yeah.
Keep it. I'll keep this.
Yeah,
of
sure.
course, 'cause it's very interesting.
And yeah, you're
But-
free to ask questions anytime in East London Mosque
Well,
or here.
what are you looking forward to most about next week in your life?
Next week, inshallah, I hope to see you soon again.
We probably will.
Yeah, so I mean, look, it's something that we believe that we have something good and we like to share that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
for us, that is our faith, our religion, our love for God, and our love for you as a human being. That we want to see you with us in paradise after this life. That is the reason.
And my love too.
Yes,
And this is paradise
that's what we
as
want to
well.
share.
Do you agree or not?
I doubt it very much.
Really?
If you think this is paradise, you haven't seen the real thing.
Have you looked up and seen the beautiful? I think.
Oh no! See, so this is the
I would
beauty
use
of.
the word beautiful.
Yeah, so
not
this-
paradise. Maybe.
For me, you know what makes me realize that this cannot come by itself. This all beauty that you see around you, it has a purpose and it also has a cause. Yes, and that is makes us reflect on the creation of God. That every time, Allah, there's an ayah in the Quran where Allah says you have to look, you have to, yeah. It's in Surah Al-Fussilat, yeah? Yeah, beautiful. I was thinking of this. So it says here, when we will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. So this is what it is. When you look at the horizons, you look at the cosmos, you look at the stars, and you look at the galaxies, you see all that, and you really wonder that this is a beautiful thing. This is something which is phenomenal, yes, which is amazing. And then you look at yourself, and you're also amazing. Yes, this is what this is. That these are. It says
tell me more.
that these are the signs which are clear from God for you to reflect upon. That have you asked yourself, where did all this come from? Yes. For example, everything that we require proof and evidence, isn't it? Empirical evidence for this, empirical evidence for that. Have you asked yourself, where did your consciousness come from? Which doesn't have empirical evidence, yet you believe in it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So this is something that science cannot prove through empirical evidence.
I agree.
Yes, through observations or in a lab through some research.
I have I have the same.
So do you believe in the metaphysical?
What does that mean?
Like your consciousness, which is not physical, not something from the physical world,
I'm not sure. I think I'm.
which you can observe, which you can measure, which you can record, which you can.
I'm curious about it.
Yeah.
I think the one thing which I love is that I think we're all talking about the same thing, but we just have different names on it based on our culture.
No, I think.
Because
Yeah.
you call it Allah.
Yes.
Christians say God.
Yeah.
The Hindu says.
But we say God as well.
Oh, you say God.
Yeah.
But
we have a name for God, and this is the difference. But there are many things in Christianity and Islam and Hinduism that makes us different, because there are many overlapping things. Like in fact, like the way you said, we don't need to be a Christian or a Muslim to be a good person, because you have acquired certain moral values which you value as being good. Okay, but then if I were to ask you what is this based on, what would you say?
Culture, law. Like I was raised as a Christian.
Yeah. So your values may be coming from that culture or from that religion or from the remnants of that even. Yes. But again, now that you're not a Christian, or I don't know, do you still consider yourself a Christian? No. Okay. So because you're not a Christian now, your values are based on your experiences. Yes. And that is something which can, like I said, can be subjective, can be right or can be wrong, can change even. So today what you might consider as being right, tomorrow you might say, no, hold on, actually that was wrong. You can change your mind. So that's what I'm saying, it's not grounded in anything. For us, we are consistent because it's grounded in our faith, in our religion, in the Quran.
You try to be consistent, I think.
Yeah, we try, because we can always go back to, let's say if we have steered away from that prohibition, for example, we have gone astray and we have started doing things which was prohibited, yes? Then you can always go back to the source and check and reassess yourself. You see what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense.
But someone who is agnostic or atheist, they don't have this, grounding where you can say that this is where my moral compass, this is where I would relate my moral compass to, because it's shifting all the time. It's subjective. You see what I mean? And that is what makes us consistent, and that is the reason I'm saying, when we have someone who is overlooking, like giving us, like God did not just create us and say, now go live your life as you want. He gave us guidance, and He showed us what is best for us and what is not good for you and not good for your community and not good for mankind in general. Because we see, that list I gave you earlier about alcohol, gambling, fornication, adultery, if you actually look at the effects of all those things, you will see that it has destroyed many lives. It has destroyed many families. It has destroyed many communities. Yes? And this is what I'm saying, that it is not for us to decide what is good and bad. Because remember, when I asked you which of this would you say should be prohibited, and you said, I don't think any of those should be prohibited. I think the only exception was interest.
Well, now I'm questioning that even, because do you own a house?
I do,
Do
yeah.
you have a mortgage?
I do. No, I don't actually. I don't have a mortgage.
You're very lucky, but
I'm not lucky. I worked hard for it. So this is something which I haven't told many people, and I want to share with you. For me, interest is such. Let's say this prohibition was so bad for me when I actually read about it, when I looked at the impact of it, that the way the banks and I'm saying capitalists in the sense that because we are in the clutches, whether we like it or not. We have to pay the taxes which go to, many wars, for example, which you and I might not agree with. You see what I mean? So regardless of whether we like it or not, and this is the government I was telling you about. So they don't always work for your benefit. They work for their benefit all the time.
Of course.
Yes. Whereas God, on the other hand, is always telling you that what has been prohibited is for your benefit. What has been commanded to you is again for your benefit. You know the 5 pillars I was going to tell you about: belief in God, belief in His messenger, praying 5 times a day, giving zakat, giving charity, yes, fasting, and going for pilgrimage. All this again are the things that you have to do, which actually builds not only on your moral character, but helps the needy. It helps you build your spiritual character. And all these things, like I said, God is working for your betterment, not your detriment like the governments do. And I'm not saying the government does everything bad. Of course they have a lot of good. Yes? Like for example, they gave us the facility in Speaker's Corner in a non-Muslim country to preach my religion. And I'm truly grateful for that. And this is what our religion preaches. That when someone does good to you, yes, then you show them your gratitude. You say thank you to them. And you proclaim this. Yes? And the same thing with regards to some